What's up, friends, and welcome into Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast, and I am the Welsh. Today on the episode, we've got the great and powerful Joe Orrico, and we are talking about some outfielders, but specifically undervalued outfielders. We've each got a couple, so we've got 4 total outfielders that Joe and Welsh are saying are underrated for the 2026 fantasy baseball season. You guys can get set for the fantasy baseball season by going to Fantasy Pros, clicking over to MLB, and checking out all the tools. We'll tell you obviously about the drafts that you can do, but we're going to be using ECR, so you can check out all the rankings there, fantasypros.com/ I think you can put an MLB rankings in, and you can check out the expert consensus ranks where we are ranking players. We've also got the ADP averages across multiple sites. Go and play with all the tools. Have fun with it. Get prepped for your fantasy baseball season. Joe Orrico, what is your identifier for underrated? This is that, like, there's sleepers and there's breakouts and they're undervalued and underrated. And I guess that's kind of what we're doing here. Underrated, undervalued. What are the description lines that separate some of these things? So specifically when we're talking about these underrated outfielders, what makes them underrated versus sleeper or breakout to you?
There's a long process that I go through, especially not being a football guy. I don't have to switch my focus at all. It's all baseball all the time. So starting from the first day of the offseason, going through player pages, going through the projections as they've come out, and kind of comparing where players are ranked in projections versus where they are in ECR versus where they go in drafts. Another thing for me that's important is actually getting into drafts, battle testing those rankings, seeing a guy still on the board in the 11th round. I think he should have been gone in the 9th round. Therefore, in my mind, he is quote-unquote undervalued / kind of a breakout player. We're going to get into the specifics here. There are certain stats that really pop out for certain players that may not be looked at on a grander scale, especially when you're talking, you're in your ESPN league with your buddies. You start digging into some of these numbers, you can really take advantage of the competition.
Yeah, and it's like a little tongue-in-cheek when I say all of this because they're all like, they're cousins of the same family. It's like breakouts, we're going to usually probably identify as like a player that has not had the opportunity to have a big season. Sleepers kind of live in the same underrated territory. What we're saying is based on where they're going, we think that this is a value because they are going to have whatever X type of return on said value overall. So that's what we're going to do here. We've got 4 outfielders. They're kind of ranging. I think the ECR range is going to be from around 29 all the way down into the 60s. And these are players that we think are going to have solid returns. I think usually based on where they're going, that floor of their cost just feels good. It's going to be hard for them to, at their cost, to not be able to return value, and there'll be more. So let's jump right into it. Orrico, you can kick us off here. Number 1 underrated outfielder. You are a dirty, stinky stealer, and you stole the player I've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 months, but I will forgive you because I completely agree with you here, of course.
Yeah, I'm in a slow draft. I'm in a couple of slow drafts, and I took him last night. And then right after I took him, you sent me the sheet, and I was like, this guy is super undervalued. So Jakob Marsee is the guy we're going to be breaking down. Specifically, if you are in need of speed and you are in maybe the 9th to 11th type of round range, Jakob Marsee is usually sitting there. He stole 14 bases in 55 major league games last year, another 47 in 98 minor league games. I'm looking at the batting average projections, and I'm kind of scratching my head here. Every single system has 223, 228, 234, 232. He hit 292 last year and showed some of the most impressive plate discipline, I think, of any hitter in the majors once he got called up. Chasing less than 20% of the time, making contact in the zone 90% of the time, only a 7% swinging strike rate. He is a contact machine, and it's led to some really good batting averages throughout his time in the minors. There have been small stints. If you look just at a long list of, the player page, he hit 176 in AA over 24 games with the Padres in 24. There are small instances there where you can give yourself a small heart attack looking at the batting average history. But by and large, he is a guy that you can count on for a really good batting average, a ton of stolen bases. I think that he could steal 40 bases. And the lineup in Miami has gotten so good. He is projected to lead off, and right behind him, Xavier Edwards, Kyle Stowers, Augustine Ramirez. You got Owen Casey, Connor Norby. I kind of like Griffin Conine as well. They're just a really solid group of guys batting behind him. So I think Jakob Marsee is seriously undervalued in your drafts in 2026.
Yeah, what's interesting about the Marsee thing, I actually just did this as well. I've been talking about him for a while. We did, you can catch Orrico and I in a live episode. We've talked about this a couple times from months ago. We had a bunch of awesome guests, and we were, this was like the industry's favorite draft picks, and this was my guy. I just talked about him over on In This League. One of the interesting things, because I'm baffled by the projection thing too. His XBA supported his batting average, which was really high last year. He doesn't strike out, good plate discipline. So you're like, where the hell are you getting 230 from? I think a lot of that is probably coming from a really poor AAA where he hit around 240 because projections can take like StatCast data from that and they can build there. So I think you could be getting some of that, which is fair. You should look at a player and you should have questions and maybe just not fully assume he's going to hit 290 again. But at the same time, I looked at like not only if you have the Baseball Savant will do like the pitch types, like fastball, breaking, off speed, and then you can do individual pitch breakdowns. When you go and look at Marsee, 300 against like sweepers, sliders, changeups, curveball, the guy is just destroying from a contact level. And I think that's the thing to kind of hit your wagon to here, that like this is a higher contact player, and this is who he was in the Arizona Fall League before. So I think I said this on the ITL show. I think his homers are more volatile than his batting averages. The projections are putting like 12, 13 homers. Listen, I think there's a better possibility he hits 8 or 9 homers than it is he hits 230, not 260. So I think like 260, 270 is the range that I really like him. I think he's going to steal a ton at the top of the lineup. He's going to score some runs, like you said. Maybe the power waivers. He's a great pick. He's undervalued. I couldn't agree more. I do. Very good pick there for Jakob Marsee. Jakob Marsee in ECR going as the 29th outfielder, 132 overall on FantasyPros ECR, which you can check out on the website or the app. All right, Joe. My first outfielder, number 2 on the board here, is coming off as the 54th outfielder. So both of mine are pretty deep here, and that really leads to I think this guy is underrated. Wilyer Abreu with the Boston Red Sox. That is going to be my choice here. Abreu hit 22 homers last year in just 373 at-bats. He hit 247, an XBA at 243. None of that's great, but it's supportive of where he ended up hitting. The massive left-handed swing destroyed righties last year, generating 21 of his 22 homers against right-handed pitchers. Interesting in his profile, though, is just a 277 BABIP. So I know a lot of people get focused on lefty-righty splits and stuff like that. You look at his average, you see around 240, 250. 277 BABIP, that was 30 points lower than the previous year. So that could be a beginning marker, potentially, that maybe there's some bad luck in there. Maybe there's some more batting average that's in the well. He had an increased barrel percentage up to 12% this past year. A launch angle increased to 23 degrees. So he's barreling the ball at a good clip, getting the ball in the air, 4 degrees higher than the previous year. And he's pulling the crap out of the ball, 25% pulled air percentage, which is an increase year over year. We also saw a K percentage drop down to 24%. That's 4% drop from the year before. And he took a big zone contact jump from 76.9% to 83%. So I just laid out all of this stuff. That is a really, really good hitting profile. So the negatives, or if you're looking at it, is there's the platoon issues that they put him in the platoon issue or spot. But the dude hit 230 against lefties is not the worst thing in the world. And then there's these 2 oddities that I'm going to throw out to you. One of those oddities, well, both of these oddities, I think don't qualify, maybe at least one specifically, don't qualify in the sticky realm. And Eno uses that a lot, where that's going to stay with the player. One of those oddities is dude struggled at home this past year. He hit over 260 on the road, only 220 at home. I would mind you, Boston has the second best ballpark factor overall for left-handed hitters. That's the one that I think maybe could be sticky because it's a home ballpark, but I don't think it is. The other one was a massive struggle against fastballs, which led to him being better against breaking pitches. But to me, especially with a hitter like that, that is not going to stick around. Usually massive fastball struggles or dominance don't tend to stay. He had a higher expected batting average against fastballs. Both of those things I don't think are necessarily sticky. So my whole point to that is So I think there's a lot left in the tank for him. Dude hit 20 plus homers and under 400 at bats. If you give him a full season, there's 30 home run potential in there. It's a big, fast swing. He's not as bad as you think against lefties. His profile screams at you, and I think he's going to hit a lot better at home this year. 54 at outfielder. He's going off. If you could get 30 plus homers outside of your top 50 outfielders, that's underrated, my friends. I don't know what you think about Wilyer Abreu here.
I am in lockstep with you completely. And just looking at the splits, the home and away stats in 2024, it was kind of the opposite. He was better at home than he was on the road. So I think that will figure itself out in 2026. He's not going to be bad at Fenway Park. At least I would be pretty surprised if he is. And another factor here is just how amazing he is defensively. He's won back-to-back Gold Gloves. If you look at the defensive runs saved, 15 of them in fewer than 900 innings in the outfield last year. So I know there's talk about like the Red Sox need to trade an outfielder. Maybe it's Duran. Maybe they put Rafael in the infield, whatever. Abreu feels incredibly safe from a playing time standpoint when Boston's, a lot of questions have been asked over the last year about who's going to play where in the outfield, who's going to get moved. Abreu feels like a cornerstone that they should be building around, a guy who's going to give you 3 to 4 win seasons in real life. And then from a fantasy point of view, it doesn't hurt you anywhere. He's even chipping in some stolen bases. That batting average is okay. And I agree that he has 30 home run potential. That launch angle being what it is, 23 degrees. Look at the other guys who were in that range last year. Raleigh was at 25, Torkelson 23, Isaac Paredes 23, Eugenio Suarez 22. That's a power stroke. He has a legit power stroke for that ballpark.
Yeah, and as mentioned, not only is it the best left-handed home run ballpark out there, it's just the home run factor kind of falls. But it is number 2 overall. Colorado's number 1, then it is Boston. The thing that does drag, though, and that's going to also come from having more left-handed hitters, is they don't scream. It's actually, near the bottom of home run ballpark factors. But again, I don't think that's something that sticks necessarily because that's also relevant to the guys that are hitting homers. So Wilyer Abreu, outfielder, 54 in ECR, absolutely underrated, big power. You got to get him. All right, we've got 2 more coming up. They're a little different too. I feel like these are both like guys that are maybe boring, duddy type of players, but we're telling you there's value. But before we do, I mentioned drafts. You guys love drafts, and you got to get prepped for your drafts. And that's why the Draft Simulator is here for you. Fantasy Pros Draft Simulator. You can level up your fantasy baseball draft prep with Fantasy Pros Mock Draft Simulator. Complete realistic mock drafts in minutes without waiting between picks. You could probably rattle off 10 drafts in a half an hour, if we're being honest with you. Complete realistic mock drafts. Do it today. Tailor your mock drafts to your league-specific settings, including roster configurations and scoring systems. You can receive instant feedback and draft grades from guys like me, Pia, Orrico, and more, and then you can refine your draft strategy and gain a competitive edge. Prepare confidently and dominate your draft with the Mock Draft Simulator at fantasypros.com/draftwizard. That's fantasypros.com/draftwizard. Mock, and mock some more, and then post them out there and let us know if I hated or loved your draft. Pia, Orrico. Put it out on the social medias. Tag us. We'll put it out there. Get your mock on today. All right, 2 more outfielders that are underrated for 2026. As mentioned, I think these names, maybe there's a little bit more ick with these 2 guys. I specifically think mine. Your guy was a absolute staple, I think, in the fantasy baseball world. It was like, I got to get this guy to get my high batting average, my 2010, my 85, and you do it every single year, and things kind of fell off last year. Now his cost is even cheaper. Joe, your second underrated outfielder is who?
It's Bryan Reynolds. And, every year, like you said, for the last few years, top 100, borderline top 100 pick between 90 and 100. He's fallen 100 spots in drafts this year just because he had a down season. And yes, it was a down year. Only 16 homers. He hit 245. Strikeout rate went up a little bit. But the barrel rate was still intact at 10%. 46% hard hit rate was a slight improvement on the year before and where he has been for the last couple of years. Best ever average exit velocity, best ever max exit velocity, and EV90, so the 90th percentile. Take away some of those outlier numbers, still the best number of his career. I think that Bryan Reynolds is one of those guys that a lot, and I'm not trying to tap myself on the back here, but I think he'll be a guy that a lot of really smart fantasy players will be drafting this year. The buy low, sell high is always framed as an in-season thing to do, but in the draft room, I think it's just as important. These guys who had perennial top 100 seasons, now being drafted outside of the top 200 picks. His ADP is right around 200. ECR is outfielder 36. I just don't understand why the fall is so precipitous for him. Yes, he should have fallen a little bit, but the Pirates lineup is better than it's been in several years. Horowitz, Lau, Reynolds, O'Hearn, O'Neill Cruz, probably Connor Griffin on his way, hopefully any day. So I think that when you're looking at the barrel rates being intact, the plate discipline numbers not really being that much different than they had been in previous seasons, he actually chased a little bit less. Zone contact ticked up a little bit. I don't see any reason why Bryan Reynolds should be going 100 picks later than he usually has. I think he can still be a 20-10 guy who hits about 260, and that lineup is the best it's been probably in his entire career. So I'm all over Bryan Reynolds this year.
So looking at the projections, it's interesting because they're kind of all over the board. And I think maybe some of it is because of like the statistical fall this past year, the rising K percentage and the average dropping. But what I find interesting is when you look at these things and they're usually like 3-year rolling averages, it really does feel like a lot of the projections are more on the recent than it is like a rolling average. So there's the Bat X, which is the most aggressive from a batting average standpoint at 257, but has the least counting stats, only 17 homers and 6 stolen bases. I think we don't have to argue that as a top 35-ish outfielder, that is not worth the return if he's only hitting 17 homers and 257. ATC, a little bit higher, little tiny bit lower batting average, but 19 homers, 76 with 5 stolen bases. And then Oopsie has 21 homers with 81 runs and a 251 average. All of them think the K percentage comes down. I think he's a pretty good, like, kind of belt piece in that, like, he just fits everything. You put him on your belt, fits the team, doesn't hurt you in a lot of spots. If there is more offense, Bryan Reynolds is going to be at the forefront of it in the middle of this lineup. I do think there is more potential. Wish the cost was a tiny bit lower, for like the production that was out there, but also it's kind of like a 1 year off there. So like you said, you look for players that don't necessarily hurt you in a lot of spots. Reynolds has a decent potential to be a player that helps you in every single category, like a 5-category guy, if not like an elite. The player I have, final player here, the name just elicits weirdness. And when you look at the production last year, you kind of feel that same way. And I think a lot of people had a hard time buying into him all year. But we are going to go to Ramon Laureano with the San Diego Padres, who hit 281 with 24 homers, 7 stolen bases, and just under 450 at-bats last year. Almost anyone that does that is not named Ramon Laureano is getting hype. But at his current state, I mean, we just listed off what Bryan Reynolds was, 36 outfielder. If you were playing in a 10-man league with 5 outfielders, Ramon Laureano would not be drafted as a starter. Maybe not drafted at all, which is crazy because he is outfielder 60 off the board. I think it's hard to deny some of the growth he's had as a hitter despite being average for so long. He had a career high barrel percentage at 13.8%. He paired that with a career high hard hit percentage at 49%. You put those things together, those are borderline like elite, if not just like upper tier when you get really good barrel, really good hard hit. You know, the guys like Nick Kurtz and stuff have that. His XBA, his expected batting average, supported his batting average at 270, so it's still high. And he cut his strikeouts down from 31% the year before to 24%. So what you see is you clearly see there was a huge change in his game, and that took place in Baltimore. It started in Baltimore, and he got traded. So you go and look at the splits there because I think that's something you can pick apart. Baltimore can be a more hitter-friendly environment, obviously, than San Diego. But though his average did change, he hit around 290 with Baltimore, around 260 with San Diego, which I'll still take the 260. His home run percentage stayed about the same. He cut his K percentage down with the Padres. And, his consistency carried throughout this season. First half, second half, he was hitting well. I think he's thrust into a really good spot with the Padres. He's proven to be able to tap back into that power. I think he can steal a little bit more, and he's going to have some great run producers around him and guys like Machado and Tatis, especially pending where they end up hitting him. He could be a guy that's hitting 5 and could have Tatis and Machado on the base. Ramon Laureano feels kind of icky, but he's similar to what Trent Grisham did. I think him and Trent Grisham are in the exact same state. These players where they just feel weird. But guess what? When they're going outside the top 50, you said this with Bryan Reynolds, I think smart players are going to find an investment on a guy like this. I don't think you want to take all Ramon Laureanos that they're going to bounce back. You want to take some shots and some risks at the end of your draft, but you also want to take guys like this. Ramon Laureano, projections are a little bit iffy just because he hasn't done this a whole bunch, but really what I'm focusing on, that hitting profile is borderlining elite. And if that can carry back over and you can get 2010 out of him at outfield 60, I don't think there's a doubt that he's going to be able to return value. Do you have any thoughts on Ramon Laureano before we get out of here?
Yeah, it reminds me of something that, honestly, Pat Fitzmaurice said the other day on the football show, but he referenced Ron Chandler. So it's kind of like we're doing the Russian doll thing here. But if you display a skill, then you own that skill. And what Laureano has done now, a couple of different times in his career, hit 24 homers, steal double-digit bases, hit over 280. And when you look at where he's projected to hit in the lineup right now, it could change for sure. But Fangraphs is projecting him to clean up behind Tatis, Merrill, and Machado. If that sticks, we could be looking at 100 ribbies. We really could. And I know that that's not what anybody's expecting from Laureano, but considering the gains he made last year, like you pointed out, it was the best offensive season of his career. He's still not old. He's 31 years old. Best ever barrel, hard hit rates. Pretty much everything was a career high for Laureano. I think I'm all over him. He hasn't been somebody that I've really drafted, I don't think even once this year so far, but outside of the top 200, sometimes 250 picks, he feels like an afterthought, and he probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, if a player shows you that they can do it, believe them. I think that's kind of the adage that goes out there. Jakob Marsee, Wilyer Abreu, Bryan Reynolds, Ramon Laureano, those are 4 outfielders that we say are underrated, but what do you say? Drop in the comments below. Let us know your underrated outfielders that we need to be looking for and people need to be paying attention to. Make sure you download the Fantasy Pros app. Make sure you're jumping on Fantasy Pros, whether you're checking out ECR, you're checking out ranks, you're checking out average ADPs, you're checking out articles. Just posted. Actually, I just finished doing a breakout article. We've got great articles from all the awesome people in the industry, and you can get your mock on with the mock draft simulator. Go and do that today. Mock draft in minutes, and be on the lookout for the MUDs, the multi-user drafts that'll be coming here in the near future, where you can bring people in. You can do all the different settings. It's a ton of fun. I know you're going to have some fun with it. That's going to do it for this episode. For Joe Orrico, I'm Chris Welsh. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros MLB.